Somewhere in your life, there's someone who doesn't yet know Jesus. You see their face right now, a friend, a family member, a neighbor, a coworker. And here's the truth. You might be the one God has placed in their path for this very moment. Not to overwhelm you, but to remind you, you have the power of one more. Somewhere along the way, we've lost sight of what evangelism and discipleship really are. We settle for a softer version of the gospel. Pray a prayer, go to heaven, done. But that's not the gospel Jesus preached at all. The real gospel is good news that changes everything, and it's meant to be shared, not by the super Christians or the pastors, but by every single follower of Jesus. Starting with one more conversation, one more invitation, one more step of obedience. When we think about sharing our faith, it can feel overwhelming. What if they reject me? What if I don't have the right words? What if I make it worse? But what if you thought smaller, simpler, more personal? One more prayer for that person, one more cup of coffee, one more text of encouragement, one more moment of listening, one more invitation to church. Because here's the thing, most people don't come to faith through one giant dramatic moment. They come through a series of moments. God works not just in the spectacular, but in the ordinary, in the faithful steps of people that are willing to respond to his prompting. I remember a man in our church named Steve. Now, Steve wasn't a preacher. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room, but he decided to be intentional about one coworker, a guy named Jeff. And it started with one more lunch break together, then one more conversation about family. Over months, Jeff began to open up about his struggles. Steve listened, he prayed, he invited, and finally, after almost a year of one more moments, Jeff accepted an invitation to church. And that day, Jeff heard the gospel clearly for the first time, and he gave his life to Christ. But here's the thing, if you ask Steve, he'll tell you it wasn't one more conversation that made the difference. It was the dozens of one more moments that God used to soften a heart. One more invite. Ask them to church. Invite them to hear your story. One more conversation. Sit down, listen, and share what Jesus has done in your life. One more step of obedience. Trust that God is at work in ways you can't see. You see, it's moving from simply knowing the gospel to actually going with the gospel. Jesus himself told us in Luke 15:10, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. One sinner, one person, one more. Every great movement of God has started with one person reaching one person. So who is your one more? Who's the person that God's placed in your life for this season? Would you commit to praying for them every day and looking for opportunities to take just one more step toward them in love? Maybe one more conversation will be the moment that they begin to believe. Maybe one more act of kindness will break down a wall in their heart. Maybe one more prayer will be the spark God uses to draw them home. Maybe one more invitation will be the open door that they've been waiting for. You see, we never know which one more will be the one that changes eternity. At Grace Church, we are building a culture of one more because we believe the gospel is too good to keep to ourselves. So today I'm asking you, find your one more. Pray for them, love them, look for that next opportunity, and then take it. Because one more could be all that it takes.